Welcome back to r/Neighbors from Hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors, and if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, Horrible Condo Association President Refuses to Honor a Verbal Agreement and Ends Up Owing More. I recently caught up with a former neighbor and was reminded of this story. Before buying my current house, I lived in a small condominium association that had 5 total units. The condo association president owned 2 of the 5 units. This woman was one of the worst human beings I have ever met. Dishonest, racist, stupid, whiny, and more. She kept getting elected president because as owner of 2 units she had 2 votes. My beta neighbor next door was a bit of a beta type who would usually go along with a-hole president just to avoid conflict. The dude across hall would usually side with me on things, but that left us outvoted 3-2. We eventually discovered that a-hole president had been spending association money on a good bit of cosmetic type improvements that were not really needed. At our annual board meeting, which was never anything more than the 4 owners getting together for coffee or a beer and going over paperwork and a basic budget, dude across hall and I pushed for a tighter budget. When we laid the numbers out, beta neighbor next door actually agreed. A-hole president was livid, but we pushed through a fairly reasonable budget on a 3-2 vote. A-hole president was having none of that, and boy was she going to show us. We had long had a standing verbal agreement to divvy up association fees and assessments at 20% per unit, even though the association bylaws stated that fees and expenses were to be charged based on each unit's percentage of the overall building's square footage. 20% per unit simply made the math easier, and we had done it that way forever without problems. A-hole president decided to teach us a lesson by insisting that we enforce the fees based on the bylaws. She threw a hissy fit about we don't appreciating her, it is not fair, I am immature, and more. Then she commented to the dude across the hall, "Well, you're Jewish, so I guess you don't know any better." Oh yeah. We tried to convince a-hole president that the verbally agreed 20% was easier to manage and overall better, but she was hearing none of it. This is how dumb this woman was. Her reasoning was that my unit was largest and therefore I should pay more, which would teach me a lesson. That is fine, except that she owned the unit below mine that had the same floor plan, meaning that it had the same square footage as mine. We figured out the new percentages. Me, 22%, a-hole president condo number 1, 22%, a-hole president condo number 2, 19%, dude across hall, 19%, and beta neighbor next door, 18%. This complete idiot was so eager to stick it to me that she didn't realize that she was insisting that her own share of expenses be increased from 40% to 41%. We did not even need to take a vote on that since it was already in the bylaws. When she realized what she had done, she brought a motion to change the bylaws to the 20% per unit. And guess what? That proposal failed 3 votes to 2. That is right, I voted against something that would keep my expenses at their current level instead of raising them, just so that a-hole president would have to cough up for her own a-holeness. The total monthly association fees were set at $750, so her fees changed from $150 and $150 to $165 and $142.50, an increase of $7.50 per month. Her percentage owed on any assessments also increased from 40 to 41%, meaning that she got to pay more than 2. Sewer repair requires an assessment. She pays 41% instead of 40%. Pipes need an upgrade, 41%. Driveway needs to be repaved and we are out of budget, 41% lady, we enforced that too. I laughed every time that I wrote a check. Paying more was well worth it to have seen that moron hang herself. So I have gotten a few requests for more stories about a-hole president. Here is a good one. We had a pipe break in one of the units and the flood caused significant damage to 3 units. The total damage was something like $25,000, which was covered by insurance. The piping in the building needed to be upgraded, so we agreed to replace all pipes in all units, including the 2 that had no damage from the flood. The total cost was somewhere around 30k, so we covered the extra cost through an assessment on all owners. We picked a general contractor and negotiated the price. The dude across hall and I specifically told a-hole president that she was not to attempt to haggle any further with the contractor because she was notorious for lowballing workers and vendors and scaring them away. She completely disregarded that and ended up paying big time. A couple of days later, a plumber and crew showed up and I assumed that this was the general contractor's plumbing crew. They got started on my unit and got about halfway done before they completely disappeared and stopped showing up. I called the general contractor to find out what was up and learned that the general contractor had walked away from the job because a-hole president kept trying to renegotiate the price. Then a-hole president found an unqualified and unlicensed plumber and she offered the general contractor a cash bribe to lie to the city and say that his company was doing the work. Of course, the general contractor told her to F off. But that did not stop a-hole president. She told the unlicensed plumber to go ahead and start the work and that she would pay him in cash. Then this idiot paid the unlicensed plumber $18,000 in cash upfront from the association funds. Of course, the guy took the cash and ran, leaving the job site a mess. Oh boy, when dude across hall and I both confronted a-hole president, she spent an absurd amount of time trying to play the victim and she kept trying to pawn off responsibility onto the association, in other words all owners and not just her. Yeah, screw that noise, dude across hall and I both filed complaints with the state attorney general's office and we retained a lawyer through my legal Zoom type work benefit. We told a-hole president that if she recovered the funds within a certain time frame that we would drop any legal claim. She pissed and moaned and called me names and called the dude across the hall a cheap Jew and on and on. It was not until the lawyer that we retained sent her a nice letter that she finally wisened up to the mess that she had created. Miraculously, the funds reappeared in short order. I stayed with a friend during that time frame because my unit was uninhabitable and I ended up having to stay way longer than expected because of a-hole president's stupidity having delayed the repairs. Holy crap, I hated that woman. And guys, if you have watched until here, I would really appreciate it if you could post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support my channel. In addition, if you haven't already, I would be really happy if you could also subscribe because I post daily Reddit content. Thank you very much in advance and now let's continue with the stories. And the next one is titled "Neighbor blocks my car to get me to move my car." This just happened today and I am still chuckling about it. The person renting the house across the street from mine has been knocking on my door for weeks now, demanding that we move our car whenever it is parked in front of her house. We have 2 cars and a 1-car garage and driveway. One of our cars is electric and has to be parked in the garage so it can charge. Since it is almost free and super fun to drive, we generally drive that one, which means our other car cannot be parked in the driveway or our EV cannot get out. Now we live on a corner, so we actually have tons of space to park at the side of our house, enough for 2 cars without blocking the community mailboxes. However, one of our neighbors loves to park their big ass SUV in the middle of that space, making it impossible for us to park there. Guess who owns the SUV? So today we had a friend over for dinner. He had just split up with his girlfriend, so we wanted to keep him company. Our car was parked in front of entitled neighbor's house, so he parked in our driveway. A few minutes later, EN bangs on our door and rings the doorbell repeatedly. My wife was cooking and I was outside in the backyard, so our friend answers the door. EN tells him to move our car. He is a nice guy, so he gets the key from my wife and goes to move the car, but has nowhere to move it to because the SUV is blocking both spaces next to our house. He learns from my wife that the SUV belongs to EN and asks her to move it so he can park behind it. She claims she doesn't have the keys. I was blissfully unaware of any of this until, from my backyard, I hear my wife cussing at someone out front. I come around from the backyard to find EN standing behind my friend's car, blocking him from pulling out of our driveway. At this point, I didn't know why my friend was sitting in his car idling. My wife storms inside to let me deal with this since I am pretty good at staying calm after years of working in retail and tech support. I approached the woman and ask what she is doing. It goes like this. Me, what are you doing? EN shouting, I want you to move your car. Me, which car? EN, that one, it's in front of my house. So why are you blocking my driveway? I want you to get the keys from that guy. Points to my friend in his car, and move your car. I step over to my friend who, seething, explains that he is trying to move his car so he can park my car in the driveway. I step back over to EN, note that EN is on the sidewalk portion of my driveway. Me, he is trying to move so he can move our car here. Why are you blocking him? EN, I want you to move your car. I've been knocking on your door for weeks telling you not to park there. Move your car. Realizing that EN is insane, I decided to cut to the chase. Me, it is street parking. We can park there. We don't have to move our car. I don't care. Your wife said the same thing. Me, now also yelling, and she is right. Are you stupid? He's trying to move his car so he can do what you want, and you are illegally blocking him in. At this point, another woman, EN's friend or roommate, approaches and shouts at me. ENF, you need to back off. Me, what? ENF, you are too close. Social distance, a-hole. Note that ENF and I are wearing masks. EN is not. I am also standing on my property. I decide to ignore ENF because I only want to deal with one crazy person right now. Me, no longer yelling, you need to move. It is illegal to block someone's driveway. EN, I'm on the sidewalk, mother trucker. I can stay here all day. Me, oh my god, you're an idiot. EN, fine, I'm an idiot, but I'm not moving. ENF, what are you gonna do? Attack us? I continue to ignore her. Me, I'm gonna call the cops. I turn away and pull out my phone to go inside and call the police. As I am walking away, EN shouts, good, call the cops. They will ticket your car. While I am on the phone with the police, EN moves and my friend, a far nicer person than me, parks up the street and moves our car to our driveway. EN then parks a pickup truck where our car was. I tell the dispatcher that the problem is resolved, but she says an officer is going to come anyway. The cop shows up and I tell him what happened. Fortunately, our next door neighbor does nothing but sit in his driveway all day and saw and heard the whole thing. The cop asks him and my neighbor corroborates my story. The cop then goes and knocks on EN's door where he gives her a lecture about public parking that lasts around 20 minutes, and before he leaves, the cop knocks on my door to tell me what he told EN. During which I learn that the SUV parked next to my house blocking both spaces belongs to EN. I also learned, to my great relief, that the reason EN wanted to park there is that she is moving out soon. Now for the kicker, throughout all this, EN had a spot in her 2-car driveway open. As far as I can tell, she just didn't want our car in front of her house, even though she apparently acknowledges that it is fine to park her SUV in front of my house. She just thinks she owns all parking in the neighborhood, I guess. Edit number 2, Electric Boogaloo. EN moved her SUV into her driveway at around 10 PM. I'm guessing she was afraid we would vandalize it or something. And you know, dear viewers, something that I'm wondering is, what is it about crazy neighbors and parking spots that makes them so insane? It just seems like entitled people go absolutely bananas when you have your own parking spot and they don't. And the next one is titled act of animal cruelty goes up in flames, literally. So reading another story about someone's dad's dog reminded me of a similar story that my own dad once related to me. In this case, the animal itself is the one who gets the revenge. When my dad was about 10 or so, he, his folks and his older brother lived in a rural area in Texas. Next door to them was one of those kids that was just one nasty little piece of crap. The kind of kid that steals, breaks stuff that does not belong to him, beats up on little kids, etc., all because it is fun for him. So my dad had a cat, and this being rural Texas in the 1960s, said cat lived outside 24/7. One day neighbor kid decides to set this poor cat on fire. I kid you not, terrified and in agony, the poor kitty ran away from home straight towards neighbor kid's house. It ran under the house and set who knows how many years worth of old insulation, cobwebs and dust on fire before running back out. It was at this point that my granddad was able to grab his son's cat and smother the fire before rushing it to the vet. They get home hours later to find their neighbor's house reduced to smoldering ruins, and with the kid being dragged through the remains by his father and getting his ass wailed on the entire time. Kid and his parents lost everything and had to pay the vet bills for my dad's cat. The cat survived. And you know guys, some revenge stories like these really make you ponder, is this a happy ending or is it not? You know, on the one hand that is what I would call absolute hardcore karma, but on the other hand it really goes a little bit far. Crazy entitled neighbor tries to bleach my sister's cat, cat gets revenge. This happened many years ago. My older sister had this awful, crappy neighbor who had a serious hard-on for sister's seal point Siamese cat. I will call neighbor CN. For crazy neighbor, sister is sis, me is self-explanatory. CN was a black-haired, plump, 40-something divorcee who annoyed everyone in the neighborhood. She had zero understanding of boundaries and liked to come over to people's homes, barge in and look, snoop around, opening drawers and cabinets and touching their stuff. Once she even went into someone's fridge and grabbed herself a ginger ale, then got mad when the homeowner took it back. If you left your door, front or back, unlocked for more than 10 minutes, chances were she would just come right in. She stole yard decorations from other people's yards and had been caught on more than one occasion pocketing something she had snagged off a mantel or table of a house she had invaded. And she would always throw a tantrum when she got busted. Cops had been called on her many times, but she was good at being pathetic, so most people did not press charges. Unfortunately, this made her bolder. Basically, she was the entitled Karen of the neighborhood. Sis was, unfortunately, one of her favorite victims. She would come over without calling, barge her way in, and demand to see Sis' cat, telling Sis how beautiful he was and how much she wanted a cat just like him. Sis, being rather non-confrontational, would let her see the cat, who did not like the woman, then make her leave. CN never wanted to leave and had to basically be pushed out the door. Oh, and she despised me because I would not let her in when I answered the door, nor would I tolerate her BS in any way if she got past my sister. CN was so obsessed with the cat and offered to buy him many times. But my sister loved that cat. He had been the runt of the litter and rejected by his mom. My sister had taken him and bottle-fed him, mothered him and saved his life. He was not a pet, he was her child. So Sis of course always said no. This royally pissed off CN. One day the cat got out, he was not an outdoor cat, so Sis and I immediately started looking for him. We were checking the bushes and behind the flower pots in her backyard when we heard a very distinctive yowl, one of pure rage, followed by a very human shriek of pain, coming from CN's house. Suddenly, the doggy door on CN's back door slams open and outruns my sister's cat, his tail and one rear paw covered in what smelled like hair bleach. I'm allergic to bleach and immediately recognized smell as he passed me, dashing past us and into Sis's house. Next thing you know, CN's back door slams open and out she comes, cursing up a blue streak. Ragged claw marks adorned her left cheek and one of her hands had a deep bite wound that had completely saturated one of the gloves, the kind one gets with any hair coloring kit, she was wearing and running down her hand and arm. Turned out, when the cat had gotten out, CN had grabbed him, took him inside, then tried to use hair bleach to bleach the brown out of his tail and paws in order to change his appearance so she could keep him. Unfortunately for her, she did not know anything about Siamese cats and just how violent they can be. They were originally temple guardians for a reason. The moment CN put that bleach on that cat's tail, he went absolutely berserk, letting out that yowl of rage we had heard, clawing up CN's face and sinking his fangs deep into her hand. She pushed herself between the bushes, the ones that looked like tall green paint brush heads Sis used to separate the property line, and began yelling. No, not yelling, shrieking. She shrieked that Sis's cat had wandered into her kitchen while she was cooking, and when she tried to pick him up, he attacked her for no reason. Clearly, this was total BS. CN then proceeded to call Sis the N-word several times, she's half black, and me an effing half-breed wetback SLUT, I'm half Hispanic, we have different dads, and she screamed that my sis was stupid for keeping such a dangerous animal and that my sis would be paying all her medical bills. She then got right in my sister's face, pushed my sister hard in the chest with her uninjured hand, saying she was calling animal control and intended to have that thing put down. CN opened her mouth to say, shriek some more, but my sis, after hearing that last statement and without one word or warning, hauled off and decked her. She landed on her butt in the grass, now clutching her left eye. Sis then loudly suggested CN go screw herself with a hot curling iron, then ran inside to find her poor cat while I called the cops. The whole thing from start to end lasted only about 5 minutes. Sis found him hiding in the laundry room and quickly cleaned him off in the sink. Meanwhile, CN is still on her ass in our backyard, howling like a banshee until the cops arrived. I told them what happened, and they later talked to my sister after she attended to her cat, who gave them the same story I did, even admitting to hitting CN in self-defense, of course. It did not hurt her case that CN had left a bloody handprint on my sister's shirt when she had shoved her. CN, of course, told them something entirely different. Her story was that she was about to bleach her hair when my sister's cat came in and attacked her. She also said, both sister and I attacked her too. I apparently kicked her in the stomach after Sis punched her, but the cops found no evidence of bruising and the scratches on her face kind of masked her swelling eye. I also think cops turned a blind eye, pun intended, to it considering the circumstances, but since there was a clear blood trail leading into CN's open back door, cops felt they had probable cause to go in. I think if CN had been paying more attention, she would have refused them entry. The blood trail led to a sink in the first floor bathroom. Blood, cat fur, a bleach applicator and the box that came in were in the sink and on the floor. The cat's collar was in the garbage. CN kept trying to play the victim, but the cops did not buy it. She got arrested and my sister pressed charges for theft and assault. CN also got nabbed for possession of stolen goods. Cops found a bunch of DVD players and CD players still in their boxes, sitting on her coffee table and in the spare room next to her bathroom. And she had a bunch of prescription drug bottles with other people's names on her kitchen counter, and it turned out she had also been stealing neighbors' painkillers when she had visited them. And since she was a renter, the property owner gave her the boot for breach of contract. She went to jail and had to pay for the cat's vet bill. He was okay, but a bit traumatized and had a yellow patch on his butt, paw and tail for several months. CN's hand got infected from the cat bite, and it turned out it had also caused tendon and nerve damage as well. Moral of the story, stay out of people's houses and have the common sense not to mess with a cat named Lucifer. And guys, unfortunately, we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where I upload exclusive Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.